Stop thinking, just execute. Esther has thought about it a million times. Stuck in a dead-end desk job for the last 6 years, she has fantasized about not having to deal with the monotony of paperwork, not having to report to a demanding boss, and not having to leave her 2-year-old son at the daycare center every day. And exactly how were such fantasies supposed to be realized when she had to earn a living to make ends meet for her family? She had the answer. She figured she'd start her own baking business right at home. It was all just a fantasy, a thought she'd conjure to get her through difficult days at work. But one day, something felt different. For some reason, she finally decided she's going for it. After all, baking was her one true passion. For years, she'd been baking cakes and cookies for her friends, who all said she should think of turning it into a business. So maybe it wasn't such a bad idea, right? So began Esther's quest to open her baking business. She didn't quit her job just yet, but filed for a 2-week vacation leave to start testing the waters. First, she thought research. She figured that she needed to get this business thing all figured out in her head first before she took any further step forward. The more prepared and planned she was, the better. She intended to research everything there is to know about starting such a venture, from recipes to finance management. She also planned to survey her friends and the entire neighborhood to get a feel of the market needs. It was all starting to take shape in her head. Unfortunately, whatever took shape in Esther's had stayed there and never found its way out. The thought of having to learn everything about how to start and run a baking business from scratch overwhelmed Esther so much that she was paralyzed from taking any action in that direction. Taxes, business filings, leases? All she wanted to do was bake. When her vacation days started, she always found things to do other than what she had initially planned. She spent her days sleeping in, doting on her son, busying herself with home projects, and catching up with her friends and neighbors, and not even to ask them for marketing input. She was too worried that if she started telling people about wanting to start a business, they might think she was too ambitious for her level of talent, expect her to fail, or, worse, expect her to succeed. She couldn't deal with the idea of expectations hanging over her head. 2 weeks thus came and went, and all Esther managed to do was put the vacation in vacation leave. As she headed back to work, the thought of running her own baking business kept on replaying in her head, still more a fantasy than a plan. She had a feeling she'd continue to think about it, several million times more. What is following through? What do you suppose went wrong in Esther's situation? Did she lack focus? Self-discipline? Action? Persistence? If you say she lacked all of the above, you're pointing to actually just one concept: following through. Following through is related to focus, self-discipline, action, and persistence, but it is not synonymous to any of them. Rather, it is a composite of all of them, a bit like how those big Japanese anime robots come to be formed by the fusion of smaller individual robot parts. Power Rangers or Voltron, to be specific. And much like how each smaller robot forms a different body part in the big robot, so too does each of these 4 elements: focus, self-discipline, action, and persistence correspond to a body part that, when pieced with the others, forms the whole of following through. The head, focus. Following through involves having focus. It's akin to the head because it is focus that keeps your head in the game and your eyes on the prize. Focus guides your thoughts in figuring out how to follow through, and directs your actions toward achieving your vision. See, following through is not just about exerting effort, it's about exerting effort that's concentrated on a single goal. With focus, no effort is wasted. What's followed is a single line of sight, so what's pursued is the single most direct way toward a goal. Going back to Esther's situation, had she been focused on her dream of starting a business, she would have structured her free time better, scheduling activities in view of realizing that dream. The spine, self-discipline. The spine of following through, self-discipline, is what enables you to get your head down and work when you need to, even if you don't want to. It's the ability to control yourself so that you retain focus on what needs to be done, despite the temptations and distractions you may encounter. This element is essential to following through because it's what gives you the power to regulate your own thoughts, feelings, and actions toward ends that are meaningful to you. Without self-discipline, you wouldn't be able to consistently exert effort on something until it's done, which is what following through is all about. As the head is continuous with the spine, so is focus continuous with self-discipline. If you are focused on what you need to do, self-discipline will naturally follow. Likewise, if you are self-disciplined, it will be easier for you to focus on what needs to be done and avoid distractions. Self-discipline, like the spine, keeps you upright so you don't slump into a mess. If Esther had enough self-discipline, she would have been able to resist using all her free time just for leisure. There's nothing wrong with catching up on some sleep or spending time with your loved ones, but if all your days are spent doing just those and none of productive work, then balance is lost. Leisure is an important part of life, but if it's excessive and takes the place of reasonable productivity, then it becomes a vice. The hands and feet, action. Action, the hands and feet of following through, means prioritizing execution and simple motion. This is what makes following through more than just having focus and self-discipline. Following through is an intention that's been translated into action. It is action that will move things in the real world and take you from point A to point B. That is, from where you are now to where the fulfillment of your goals lies. It is the visible aspect of following through, the one that's actually observed, measured, and evaluated against your goals. Action is thus crucial to the execution of your plans and the realization of your goals, for without it, plans remain abstract and goals remain dreams. Had Esther acted on even just the first part of her plan, research, she would have at least inched her way toward realizing the dream business she had in mind. The heart, persistence. Finally, at the heart of following through is persistence. Persistence is firmly sticking to something for a prolonged period of time, even as you encounter things that try to unstick you. It's the tenacity to adhere to a course of action even in the face of obstacles. It is not enough to just start. You need to stick with it until it's done. Following through is about having enough heart to keep pushing even in the face of obstacles, distractions, and setbacks. Many of the goals worth aiming for in life call for not just a sprint, but a marathon. If your heart is not fit enough to run the length of it, then you will find yourself stopping halfway through and giving up before you reach the finish line. Did Esther have the persistence to see her dream through? It seems this question isn't even available to ask in Esther's case, as the question of persistence can only arise if one has in fact taken enough action to get to encounter several roadblocks over an extended period of time. Since Esther stopped before she even began, the question of persistence wasn't even in the equation for her. So there you have it. The individual parts focus, self-discipline, action, and persistence all combine to be the super robot called following through and finishing what you start. It's gratifying and fulfilling to be able to pull together focus, self-discipline, action, and persistence within ourselves and get to watch our dreams be turned into reality as a result of it. But if following through is so awesome, why don't we all just do it all the time? The short answer is because it's hard. The long answer, which also explains why it's hard, is detailed below. Why don't we follow through? When it comes to thinking up what we want to do, what we need to do, or what other people need to do, we're usually experts. Our ideas run wild. The blueprints in our heads get magically written out with not much effort, and the mental picture of us living our dreams comes into sharp focus faster than we can say cheese. But when it comes to actually getting off our butts and following through with action, we're usually not only amateurs, but also unwilling participants. When it comes down to it, we often couldn't find the focus, self-discipline, action, and persistence needed to get the job done. Sometimes we go into the battle without our heads or our spines. Other times we lack our hands and feet or our hearts. We think we could just call on these parts to get together when we need them to, but we arrive at the battleground only to discover that it's never as easy as we thought it would be. The excitement and enthusiasm with which we thought out all our dreams and plans fizzle out as soon as we realize the amount of hard work we need to put in to turn those dreams into reality, to bring those plans into life. We don't follow through, and it's not for lack of ability or intelligence, no. We don't follow through for two main reasons. We have an entire selection of 1. Inhibiting tactics and or 2. Psychological roadblocks that hinder us from finishing what we start.